Hi everybody, it's Miss Broxton again. Today we are still going to be rounding to the nearest hundreds, except for you'll notice my number line looks quite different than it did from the other day. This is called a curvy number line. We're still going to work it the same way. We are going to start this one with the number 300. So I would place 300 here. The next 100 would be 400. The next one would be 500. The next one would be 600, and my last blank, I would have 700. Now these are called boundary numbers because they sit along the bottom of the number line. Okay, if you remember, we also have some important numbers called midpoint numbers. Okay, we discussed the other day that half of 100 would be 50. So 300 plus 50 more, my midpoint between 300 and 400 would be 350. My next one would be 450. My next one would be 550. And my last one would be 650. Now, if you look closely, there are some little tick marks that flow along this number line, okay? So we have to figure out what are those valued at. So we have 300 here and we have 350 here. So sometimes people say, well, they're valued at 1. Well, let's see, 301, 302, 303, 304, 350. No, that wouldn't be enough. Then some people say 5s. 305, 310, 315, 320, 350. No, that wouldn't make sense. So then the light bulb goes off and they're like, oh, it's 10. Let's try it. 300, 310, 320, 340, 350, 360, 370, 380, 390, 400. Well, yes, that is exactly right. So these little lines right here, the little tick marks, those are valued at 10 when we're skip counting by 100ths. Okay, so my first number that I want to plot is the number 505. Okay, now remember, I'm rounding to the hundreds, so I'm underlining that number in the hundreds place. When I'm looking along the bottom of my number line, I notice the first number that I come into contact that has a 5 in the hundreds place is 500. The next one is 600. So I know that 505 is going to be between the boundary numbers of 500 and 600. So I'm going to place that in the blank. Now, remember, you're supposed to ask yourself, is 505 less than, equal to, or greater than my midpoint? It's less than. So we know that 505 is going to be somewhere between this 500 and 550. So remember, we said these are valued at 10. So from between here and here, we could have 501, 502, 503, all the way to 509. But then when we got to 510, it would be right there. So I know that 5 is half of 10. So I'm going to plot 505 about right there on my number line. Okay, remember, it's to the left of the midpoint, so we know that it's going to round to 500. It's only 5 jumps away. I'd have to go 95 jumps to get over here to 600. All right, my next one I'm going to use the number 650. Again, I'm rounding to the 100, so I would have that 6 underlined. Looking at the boundary number, I notice that 600, then I have 700. So I would place that there. So 650 is going to be somewhere along this section of my number line. Now, I ask myself, is it less than, is it equal to, or is it greater than the midpoint? Well, obviously, they have the same number of hundreds, the same number of tens, and the same number of ones. So because I already have it labeled here, I don't need to relabel it. I'm just going to put my point. So remember, it's 50 jumps to get back to 600, and it's 50 jumps to get back, or to get to 700. We never want to turn around and go back, then have to go back another 50, and then go another 50. Midpoint numbers always, always, always are going to fall and round to the larger boundary number. So it's going to be closer to 700. Okay, the next one, let's do 375. I'm underlining the 3 in the hundreds place. Okay, it's between 300 and 400. Okay, I'm going to ask myself, is it less than, equal to, or greater than the midpoint. Well, I know it's greater than, so it's not going to be plotted on this side of the number line. It's going to fall to this side. So remember we said these are valued at 10. So if this is 350, this is going to be 360, 370, 380. So it's 375. So it's going to be between these two lines on my number line. So it's half. So I would put it right here, 375. And again, it's to the right of the midpoint. So it's going to round to the higher boundary number of 400. Okay. My last one that we're going to practice with is 622. Okay, I'm going to underline that 6 in the hundreds place. Again, it's going to be between 600 and 700. Okay, so I know it's going to be somewhere over here. Now, I have to ask myself, is it greater than, less than, or equal to the midpoint? Well, my midpoint is 650, so I know it's going to be less than. So this would be 600, 610, 620, 630. So I would need to place my point between these two tick marks, okay? So I would place it about right here, okay? So again, because it's on the left side of the midpoint, it will round to the smaller boundary number of 600. That's it today for curvy number lines today.